And thank you. And finally, let me just quickly introduce you to Catherine, our colleague from urbaMonde France. She's bravely taken on the task of keeping us on time and make sure we don't drift too far from the agenda. She will stop us if we talk too much. Um, and I would like to hand over to my colleague, Leah, who will give us a brief introduction and overview of the process that has brought us here today.
Thank you, Nina. And hello to everybody. It's nice to see so many people interested in this quite important and key topic that we will be tackling today. Just for those who don't know us, so we're urbaMonde, which is a small NGO that was founded in 2005 and is based now in Geneva and in France. A small team that works alongside low-income communities to guarantee the right to adequate housing, promoting community-led housing initiatives worldwide. I won't get too much into the details. If you want to know more about this, you can check out our website, of course. And one of the activity that we have been implementing for quite a few years now, a little bit more than 10 years, is the coordination of the Cohabitat network. So one of our strengths as a small NGO is the whole network and allies that is around us, and including, of course, our local partners in the different parts of the world that we support and work with. The Cohabitat network is a bit larger than just our local partners. It also includes all the support actors and allies coming from the academic sector and philanthropic foundations, etc., to support our mission and the mission from all our friends and members of the network. And one of the activity that the Cohabitat network is implementing is, can you just come back to the first slide, please? One of the activities that the Cohabitat network is implementing is creating spaces to exchange experiences and learn from each other. And that's a very important part of what we are doing together. We are trying, of course, to co-construct horizontally and sharing each one our practices in these spaces to also improve locally implemented practices in different parts of the world. Now we can go to the next one, Nadia. Thank you. In this case, we will be presenting a systematization process that we have been leading together with our local partners and members from the Cohabitat network in the past year. This includes 9 organizations from 9 countries, and Nina will be presenting them more in detail. And as you can see, they come from Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And we have been speaking about these community-led financial mechanisms together, getting a little bit more, diving into how they work and what they have been allowing these local organizations and community organizations to achieve. And next one, Nadia. So a systematization process is mainly a knowledge production from the bottom up. It's a process of individual and collective reflection around an experience. In this case, community-led finance mechanisms, which allows for the systematic reconstruction of what has been achieved in the process. So this is inspired from popular education processes, and I won't get too much into detail, but we will be sharing, of course, the publication so you can know more about that. You can go to the next one, Nadia. So this is actually the second phase of an ongoing systematization process. This is the second publication that we will be presenting. The first one was about community empowerment in community-led housing initiatives. You can also find this publication on our website. And it was the same principle of a process working together with the local partners, producing knowledge around their long experience in terms of accompanying local communities. We can go to the next one. From this publication, we of course got to a conclusion, and different aspects came out that were key in accompanying and working with the communities locally in informal settlements and different contexts to help them develop their community-led housing initiatives. So yeah, you have this little representation here, but what I want to insist on is the topics that came out that are really key. And one was the community savings and this famous financial mechanisms that we will be speaking about. And that's why we decided together with the partners to dive into this topic for the second publication. Next one, Maria. And that's what we will be presenting you, and I hand it over to Nina now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. I think we can, yeah, we can go to this slide. So over a bit more than a year, from 2024 to 2025, we worked very closely with all our partners to really understand how community-led financial mechanisms work in practice. We started by looking at how these mechanisms were created, how they were put in place, and then moved on to how they actually function today. So how people save and take loans, how governance works, who does what, and who takes which responsibilities. We also wanted to understand the main challenges that partners and communities face when running these systems, and finally to document best practices that have emerged after years, sometimes decades of experience. And in total, we studied 9 different mechanisms, and this gave us a very rich picture of the key dimensions that shape how these funds operate and how sustainable they are over time in the long term. And once we systematized those findings, all these findings, we were able to draw a set of key recommendations for address that public, private, and nonprofit actors. So in the second part of the webinar, we'll go deeper into these findings and recommendations. But before that, we thought it would be important for you to have a sense, to give you a quick overview of the mechanisms that were at the center of this study. So I'll try to quickly introduce them. So as I mentioned, we worked with 9 organizations, each co-managing a community-led fund, and all of them at very different stages. Some have been running for more than 20 years. Others are still in the early phases of implementation, and this really gave us a very rich picture. So we can move on to the next. In Latin America, we worked with Multipro, a professional cooperative that provides technical assistance to mutual aid housing cooperatives in Nicaragua, in Matagalpa, central Nicaragua. Together, they manage a local revolving fund that has already disbursed more than 200,000 US dollars in ethical loans. And these loans give cooperatives access to affordable credit, both for land purchase and for housing construction. We can move on. In Africa, in Senegal, we collaborated with urbaSen, a technical assistance NGO, to document the revolving fund for urban renewal, a local fund that they co-manage with the Senegalese Federation of Inhabitants to support its members. The federation brings together, as you can see, more than 600 savings groups. And through these funds, they have managed to rehabilitate over 1,100 houses. And the fund also supports income generating activities and community infrastructure projects. In Zambia, we worked with the People's Process on Housing and Poverty, which has long supported the savings schemes of the Zambia Poor People's Federation. They have successfully established an urban poor fund called the Swalizano Fund. And through a combination of community savings and external capital that they've managed to secure, they've been able to secure, as you can see, thousands of hectares of land, rehabilitate and construct around 5,000 housing units, and implement as well different public infrastructure projects. Moving on to Asia, in Nepal, we worked with Lumanti Support Group for Shelter. which has really been instrumental in setting up community savings in urban areas in Nepal. For more than 2 decades, urbaMonde has supported women's savings and credit cooperatives, and today we find more than 30 cooperatives all over the country, gathering, as you can see, almost 50,000 members, individual members. Together, they have mobilized only in savings 25 million US dollars. And those cooperatives, they offer a wide range of loan and savings schemes from housing to health to education and other essential needs. In Sri Lanka, we've collaborated with Sevanatha Urban Resources Center to document the extensive work of the Women's Co-op, which is a national cooperative with over 270 branches also all over the country, with 125,000 members. They run a wide range of savings, loan schemes, as well as insurance schemes, health clinics, training programs. They really respond to community needs. And what is especially impressive about this mechanism is that everything is as in the others, everything is entirely managed by community, and in this case, particularly by women from those communities, from the neighborhood savings groups all the way to their national council, following a principle that they've put in place, that everyone is a leader. So this governance model really ensures that the whole system is run by community representatives. And to date, they've disbursed over 16 million US dollars in housing loans, and that enabled the construction of over 6,000 housing units for Women's COP members. In the Philippines, we worked with the Philippine Action for Community-Led Shelter Initiatives, the technical arm of the Homeless People's Federation, to document the federation's savings scheme. For decades, they've been supporting urban poor communities in securing land and improving their living conditions all across the country. And today, the federation counts with over 600 saving groups with over 6,700 member households. And through a mix of savings and partnerships, they've managed to acquire more than 95 hectares of land and upgrade the living conditions of over 2,800 families. In Bangladesh, we worked with the Platform of Community Action and Architecture, which brings architects, urban planner, and other urban professionals in processes of co-creation with communities in informal settlements in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has a long tradition of community savings, and POCA has been drawing on those past learnings to work with communities in Dhaka, particularly supporting them in establishing their savings mechanisms for land and housing. The capital that POCA manages to secure and invest in housing projects in these communities is partially paid back by the beneficiary families into their own local saving groups, so that this fund can keep growing and further supporting other families over time. In Indonesia, we've worked with the Urban Poor Consortium, which is a grassroots organization that is just getting starting with an innovative community savings scheme. They've been supporting for the past decades kampung housing cooperatives in their fight for land and housing. And inspired by the past savings practices in Indonesia, but also by the savings scheme of the Women's Co-op in Sri Lanka, which they had a chance to visit last December. They've now been working on setting up a national savings scheme to support kampung cooperatives in meeting urgent needs. And finally, in India, we collaborated with the Unachala Foundation to document the savings schemes in Kutch in Western India. And in this region, women have organized themselves collectively into self-help savings groups with the support of local NGOs and women's collectives. They've set up a local revolving fund to meet their most urgent needs, especially regarding housing. And since 2009, since 2009, they've collected, as you can see, over about 4,070 in savings, which allowed them to disburse 1.3 million US dollars in housing loans. And this has allowed communities to build over 400 new homes and rehabilitate another 125. So that's a very quick tour around the world of the mechanisms we document, just to give you a sense of what you find in much more detail in the publication. Now I will pass the floor to my colleague Alessia, who will walk us through the main findings that emerged when we analyzed and systematized afterwards all these different mechanisms. Ale.
Yeah. So we did this long process. We had like interviews with each partner and also collective workshops. And after collecting the data, we were able to organize the results and identify also some key lessons, the main findings that we want to present today. It's important, as Nina said, that it's important to keep in mind that the 9 mechanisms are very different from one another. Each one operates in its own local context with its own governance model and also on its own level of local diffusion. But despite these differences, the systematization allows us to identify also several common elements that are shared by most of the systems. So first of all, we can start. I will pass to the next. Thank you, Nadia. We can start with a common definition of community financial mechanism. These are systems that are designed and managed by the community themselves to respond to their own economic and social needs. They can take many different forms, such as saving group, we can find revolving funds or financial cooperatives, but they all share a set of common principles. As for example, we have the aspect of community ownership and control. Unlike mainstream finance, community-led financial mechanisms let communities control and manage their own resources, even when external funds are involved in this mechanism. Then there is the collective management and bottom-up decision-making aspect. This means that the community-led financial mechanisms operate at multiple levels, ensuring that decision reflects members' needs while promoting transparency, leadership, and accountability. And then we can also talk about solidarity and inclusion, because the community-led financial mechanisms provide accessible finance for those that are normally excluded from formal system, because this system, the community-led financial mechanism, offer flexible loans, low interest rate, and community support. Beyond providing financial tools, these mechanisms play a much bigger role, so they become powerful drivers of community mobilization, capacity building, and community empowerment. Another important key point is the strong women's leadership. In several contexts, such as Senegal, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India, these mechanisms are entirely run by women's groups. In others, women represent a strong majority of members and leaders. And this stands in clear contrast to mainstream finance, where women usually represent a minority. The women-led, community-led financial mechanism advance finance inclusion, and they serve also as powerful vehicles for empowerment. Many of these leaders have overcome social exclusion and gender-based discrimination, and they emerge as strong voices and role models within their communities. And I will pass the floor to Nina.
Thank you, Ale. When we systematized and when we compared and systematized all those different mechanisms, we realized as well that there are key dimensions that really shape how these mechanisms consolidate, function, and eventually scale. In the publication, you will see that the challenges and good practices that we identify they fall across the same key dimensions. First, there's everything related to people, the attitudes, perceptions, cultural dynamics that influence participation, appropriation, and trust in the saving system. Second, there are the skills and the capacities of both support organizations and communities themselves to manage those mechanisms. Third, there is a set of practices that help ensure the long-term sustainability of those funds, both financially through transparent systems and socially by ensuring that these mechanisms really respond to people's needs and that they do remain inclusive. Fourth, there is everything related to governance, the structures, leadership roles, accountability processes that make those mechanisms run smoothly and with integrity over time. And finally, there's the legal and regulatory environment in which those mechanisms operate. And across all of this, when we looked closely at the practices of those different funds and what has allowed them to scale and to grow, a set of key principles is really stood out as essential for their success and long-term sustainability. First, these funds only work when communities truly own and appropriate those funds. Community ownership is really at the heart of everything. Second, support organizations such as NGO and technical partners, they play a crucial role. They help to build the skills to connect communities to funding, and they create the visibility. All of these, all of which are necessary so that these mechanisms can scale. Third, these mechanisms tend to grow in a very organic and sustainable way, meaning that they usually start small in a single community or locality, and they expand once a first pilot has worked very well. And over time, they link up, they create networks, and they eventually federate either at regional or national level. And as they grow, we also see that the technical teams around them also get stronger. Their financial products are designed to be as inclusive as possible so that even the most vulnerable member in the community can access the financial products. And both their governance and their financial tools are shaped directly by the needs of the communities. So we can see that maybe sometimes the fund started only with loans for housing, and then once people improved their condition, they've created loans for education, health, and so on. So it really evolves according to the needs of the communities. Another and they are also able to support those needs, those everyday challenges, while also support long-term needs like housing. Another key point is the role of federations and citywide networks. They're responsible for connecting local saving groups to broader structures, creating the link between a neighborhood level practice to a national level advocacy. And that's really what turns those funds from isolated efforts into a collective movement. Fifth, transparency and accountability are also essential. There's no system that is completely immune from mismanagement, but what really matters is the ability to prevent problems, to quickly detect them, and to respond when needed. So clear rules, open information, collective oversight, they help to build the trust, and they help those mechanisms to remain credible and transparent over time. And finally, formal recognition by public and private actors. It's really key for scaling. When those mechanisms are acknowledged and supported, they gain legitimacy, they gain resource, they manage to access other resources, they gain on visibility, and that really makes a huge difference. So in our publications, we have put forward concrete examples that emerged from the cases analyzed in each of those dimensions, And we hope that this can also serve as inspiration and inform local practices and local processes. Now I'd like to move to another important section of the publication, the recommendations we've drawn for public, private, and nonprofit actors. Those recommendations, I would like to stress, they come directly from what partners have shared with us throughout this year, from the challenges that were put forward, and from the factors that shaped those mechanisms grow or not, or which hindered their growth. They really come from the ground, and for us, this has been one of the most important results of of this work, because advocacy is essential if we want to see those mechanisms being recognized and grow. So we've tried to make these recommendations as concrete and straightforward as possible so that they can really offer clear pathways for action. So for this part, you'll hear directly from our partners. And I would like to start by inviting Lumanti from Lumanti Support Group from Shelter, our partner in Nepal, who will present the first two recommendations. Lumanti.
Thank you, Nina. Through this study and also our work in the ground, we have seen that like the communities are capable of managing their own finances and do many things with their own collective fund. But like what we need to understand, especially the public stakeholders must understand, is that like they must begin to see the communities as not as a passive beneficiaries, but as a co-investor, co-planners, and long-term partners in the urban development. There are certain examples also which we have piloted in some of the cities in Nepal. I will share it as I go through the recommendation. So it is necessary to establish spaces like for like local dialogue where people, the community cooperatives, public-private actors can come together and discuss jointly about collaboration for not just for like basic needs and other things, but like also for accessing the housing. Uh, in case of some of the cities in Nepal, we have established like urban community support fund, where the community organization, the federations, the cooperatives, and the local actors, the local government, they come together and they pool in some funds, which they have like a guided principle on like how it is managed. It is completely different. Like they have uh, made it very flexible according to the need of the low-income communities in the cities, which if through this fund, the it is managed by the cooperative, the women's cooperative in the city, and the repayment, these are managed like some of the activities, some of the things such as housing, access to water and sanitation are given as loan, but like some like welfare or things like that, they're given as grants. So they come together collectively to manage this fund, and then the women saving and credit cooperative play an important role to manage this system there. So I think like it is very important to start some pilot projects that can combine the public funding for housing and infrastructure, which also combines uh, the scale of community-led finance mechanisms. So this urban community support fund is one of the examples of how we are doing it in some of the cities in Nepal. Some has worked very well in some cities where the public, the authorities are like open to new ideas, new innovations. But like in some cities, it has kind of like stalled because of the no concrete regulatory frameworks are there. So it is very important that like these community-led finance systems, community-led housing systems are built into the national housing laws and uh, plans so that the community and the cities can benefit from the government subsidies, because the scale at which we are working at the city level is very small. In order to scale up, we would need like a support from the government agencies. So there is a genuine need to build a long-term institutional partnership between the community federation, municipalities, and the housing finance institutions to strengthen the coordination and the accountability. What we've seen in our case is like the community-led finance mechanism, the cooperatives. They are taken as like a kind of a very, not as a key actor, but like a kind of a, when the government is investing in some community works like in low income communities, they uh, they come and partner, but like they're not taken as like a kind of a like a big actor which can play an important role. So I think it is very necessary to get like a kind of a recognition for that. So it is also necessary to set up a simple, accessible public funding channel for the community-led housing, which includes housing grants, subsidies, and funds which are directly managed by uh, grassroots organization. And this urban community support fund, which we have been implementing in some of the cities, is like one of the example. But like we need to scale it up. The partners, the government needs to invest more in such initiatives. Yes. Next one. Nina? Okay.
Yes.
Mm. What we have also seen is that like though these community-led financial mechanisms are working very well, it is very uh, it is it what we've seen is what it worked well because uh, in case of Nepal, the saving groups, the cooperatives are registered and like it's very formalized. So there is like a kind of set of regulations or like that kind of governance which the cooperatives have developed for their own governance system. So that has helped to kind of formalize the system and also uh, link with the different stakeholders at the city. But what we have seen recently is like they have the government and the regulatory uh, bodies, they tend to kind of like put the community led system like it's kind of like compared to what is like a commercial financial system, and they're like put together, and then the registration processes and everything is made very complicated, which the communities are not able to manage, or like it's very difficult for them to manage. So it's very important to simplify the registration process and also reduce the cost for registration by making it easier for the saving groups and the community federations to obtain legal status and also access the institutional support from the government itself. So for this, I think it is very important to develop like a dedicated provisions and recognition frameworks for community-led financial institutions and other forms of community-based organizations such as cooperatives, federations, and saving networks. What we have seen recently in Nepal is like the the cooperatives, the commercial cooperatives. There are a lot of cases of frauds, but like what we've seen in the women-led cooperatives, which are working on the ground, they are very fair and very transparent. But like when the government sees the cooperatives, so they tend to put all of these together and bring in like a kind of a very stringent kind of regulations, which is difficult for the women to manage. So for this, I think there should be like a kind of a flexible and have like a separate kind of a regulations for the community-led financial systems. Uh, there is a need to provide like a continuous technical and legal support because the system and the mechanisms and regulations keep changing, and the training is required to help the community organizations to understand the regulatory systems, help them to formally register, and and remain compliant over the time. So this includes capacity building, training, advisory services, which are needed to the realities. What we have tried to do in case of Nepal is like we have formed like a network of saving groups. We of all these 36 women-led cooperatives, and they are built into network, which are led by the key leaders from like the key cooperatives. They are providing like supporting providing support to each other. So like if a new cooperative is being formed, uh, the community-led CWF members provide like support to kind of provide like an exchange of skills from like a new from a old experience cooperative to a newly formed cooperative. So that kind of system is already there, but like as a government, I think that should also come as a support, technical support for them. So there is also a need to have like encourage space for exchange between the public authorities, legal authority, actors, and community networks, so that the regulations are shaped by the real experience on the ground, and that also reflect the realities of the community-led finance work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lumanti. Now I'd like to invite Keita from urbaSen to present us the third recommendation. Keita, tu nous entends?
Merci beaucoup, Léa. Donc, moi, je vais devoir parler d'un aspect important, en tout cas, de ce travail. Donc, c'est tout ce qui est lié au financement. Parce qu'il faut dire que malgré nos efforts pour créer, en tout cas, des mécanismes alternatifs de financement, nous restons aussi dépendants des bailleurs institutionnels. Et l'accès au financement n'est pas toujours quelque chose de simple, parce qu'avec ces bailleurs institutionnels, ils ont parfois du mal à comprendre, en tout cas, les mécanismes que nous mettons en place ou à les accepter, car ces mécanismes sont jugés peut-être trop informels et parfois peu ou pas assez documentés. C'est pourquoi nous, au Sénégal, en tout cas, nous envisageons, dans le cadre de la collaboration avec des universités, donc d'établir un pont pour intéresser davantage les chercheurs à s'intéresser à ces mécanismes-là. Ça pourra aider peut-être pour tout ce qui touche à la documentation. Il y a aussi le fait que les cadres qui sont pensés par ces bailleurs institutionnels sont des cadres souvent qui ne sont pas adaptés, en tout cas aux pratiques des communautés sur le terrain. Il y a on note une certaine rigidité, en tout cas par rapport à ces cadres-là, et ça constitue un frein pour accéder à des financements ou parfois limite la portée, en tout cas, de ce que nous sommes en train de faire. Et nous pensons qu'il est nécessaire, en tout cas, d'établir un dialogue euh, pour essayer, en tout cas, d'améliorer les cadres qui actuellement existent. Parce que nous, ici au Sénégal, par exemple, nous travaillons avec différents bailleurs. Nous avons essayé, nous y sommes arrivés parfois à démontrer donc la viabilité du mécanisme que nous avons mis en place. Certains parmi ces bailleurs-là nous ont fait confiance et ça marche très bien. Par contre, pour d'autres, ils avancent encore à petits pas, disant qu'ils doivent tester le système. Mais souvent aussi, donc, au niveau de ces bailleurs institutionnels, ils se heurtent à la notion de risque. En tout cas, c'est ce qu'ils évoquent souvent, des risques de détournement d'objectifs, et particulièrement la difficulté que nous rencontrons ici en Afrique, c'est quand on nous parle de financement du terrorisme ou quelque chose, ou des choses, en tout cas du genre. Ce qu'il faut retenir, c'est qu'il faut que ces cadres-là évoluent à travers peut-être la création de lignes de financement dédiées en essayant d'adapter les critères des bailleurs aux réalités et pratiques des communautés, en étant plus flexible, une certaine flexibilité donc de la part des bailleurs et de faire les efforts nécessaires pour bien comprendre les contextes, mais aussi les dynamiques qui se développent actuellement. Parce qu'il faut le dire, la plupart des bailleurs sont souvent très loin du terrain, très loin en tout cas de ce qui se fait sur le terrain, mais ils ont leur manière à eux de concevoir des cadres et des cadres souvent qu'on a du mal à adapter, en tout cas à ce que nous faisons. Et il est certain que pour les bailleurs institutionnels, investissements privés ou les philanthropes, ONG et communautés, nous tendons tous donc vers le même objectif. C'est vraiment qui est vraiment l'accès de tous à un logement digne. Ce qu'il faudrait alors, c'est encourager donc des modèles de financement mixtes à travers des partenariats de long terme. Parce que aussi, il est difficile de développer ce genre de mécanisme à travers des projets sur des durées parfois de 18 mois, 24 mois, ou quand c'est long, c'est à peu près 36 mois. Et cela ne permet pas toujours donc de développer des programmes à travers lesquels l'apprentissage et la connaissance et la production de connaissances deviennent des choses possibles. Ici au Sénégal, nous essayons, cela dure maintenant une bonne quinzaine d'années que nous essayons en tout cas de travailler avec les bailleurs institutionnels, mais aussi de travailler avec les autorités sénégalaises, ce qui parfois pose problème parce que ces mécanismes, déjà, on a du mal à les faire reconnaître, à les faire reconnaître. Il est très facile qu'on nous taxe parfois d'être dans l'illégalité et nous nous appuyons en tout cas sur les formes traditionnelles de tontine que nous avions ici au Sénégal avec les femmes pour essayer d'asseoir un fonds rotatif. Nous avons beaucoup de résultats. Ces résultats ont été présentés aux autorités, on les présente aux bailleurs. Souvent, on donnait l'exemple, en tout cas, d'un financement, d'un appui que nous avons reçu d'un bailleur et à travers nos actions de tous les jours, nous avons pu leur démontrer que pour 1 euro investi, nous, on arrivait en tout cas à réaliser jusqu'à 2,5 euros, 2,5 euros d'investissement. Et il y a aussi une autre difficulté par rapport à certains bailleurs qui parfois privilégient les grandes. Nous avons essayé, en tout cas pour éduquer nos communautés, nous, de nous départir des grandes pour mettre en place ce fonds rotatif, pour permettre une plus large participation, en tout cas des communautés, mais permettre aussi aux communautés d'échanger, de faire tourner ces fonds-là, donc pour que le maximum de personnes puissent en bénéficier. Ce n'est pas toujours donc des choses évidentes, mais j'insiste beaucoup, en tout cas sur la documentation, et c'est pourquoi donc un tel document, en tout cas, servirait, quel que soit le contexte, quel que soit le pays, en tout cas de porter un plaidoyer auprès des autorités, auprès des différents bailleurs, parce que ça a toujours été un frein par rapport à ce que nous faisons. Aujourd'hui, avec certains bailleurs, dialoguer est une chose possible parce que tu as la possibilité peut-être de s'asseoir directement avec eux et de démontrer donc la viabilité des systèmes que nous mettons en place à travers les actions, à travers aussi les résultats que nous présentons. Mais ce n'est pas toujours une chose possible. Nous sommes très éloignés les uns des autres. Et c'est souvent parfois dans le dialogue avec les universités ce que je reproche. Si nous avons les bailleurs institutionnels d'un côté, nous avons les communautés qui travaillent sur le terrain, il y a aussi les universitaires, peut-être dont c'est le métier, les gens du monde de l'académie. Et nous essayons actuellement, en tout cas, d'établir un pont qui permettrait à ces universitaires de comprendre ce que nous faisons, de pouvoir produire des documents, en tout cas des documents digestes qu'on pourrait partager donc avec les autres. Merci beaucoup. 5 minutes, c'était très court, hein?
C'est parfait, Keita. Merci beaucoup. Invito a Ana de Multipro a compartir con nosotros La cuarta recomendación. Ana.
Ok, hola a todos. Soy Ana de Multipro, Nicaragua. Bueno, en esta sistematización de experiencias acerca de los mecanismos financieros comunitarios, hemos logrado constatar acerca de los financiamientos semilla, cómo los financiamientos semilla permiten eh, innovar, permiten probar nuevas ideas y demostrar resultados que generan un impulso para la comunidad. Estos fondos son fondos complementarios a esos fondos que inicia la comunidad llamados ahorros. Son fondos que complementan esa iniciativa local y por ello generan un gran impacto a nivel local y creo que se pueden potenciar. Las organizaciones de apoyo técnico son fundamentales también. En nuestro caso, como Multipro en Nicaragua, es una organización relativamente joven que hemos podido demostrar que estos fondos semilla sí dan buenos resultados a nivel local y que también son iniciativas que se pueden replicar, dan una solidez institucional tanto para las cooperativas, para los movimientos locales, para las federaciones, que inician con pequeños fondos de ahorro, pero aquí es donde demostramos el trabajo colectivo desde la parte financiera. Consideramos que se puede proveer financiamiento semilla dedicado especialmente eh, a crear nuevas condiciones financieras para estas cooperativas, federaciones que están trabajando con el sector más vulnerable, menos visibilizado, que son organizaciones comunitarias que están rompiendo paradigmas, que están innovando. En paralelo a ello, también asegurar el financiamiento estructural a las organizaciones que dan el apoyo. En nuestro caso, como Multipro, somos un equipo de asistencia técnica que ha venido acompañando, llevando de la mano a las cooperativas de vivienda en Nicaragua y hemos logrado conseguir tierras, viviendas y mantener una organización sólida, la cual se está fortaleciendo tanto con los ahorros como con estos fondos semilla para el financiamiento de viviendas dignas. También consideramos que se debe de garantizar el financiamiento para que existan equipos multidisciplinarios, equipos que estén enfocados también en el acompañamiento a estos grupos locales, tanto en la gobernanza colegiada, a como hablaban mis compañeras y compañeros, que la toma de decisiones viene desde abajo, pero para que esa toma de decisiones sea transparente y colegiada, es necesario que hayan equipos de acompañamiento técnico para que se pueda visibilizar la transparencia en todos estos procesos. En Nicaragua ha sido difícil realmente para nosotros poder sentarnos a negociar con el gobierno. Más sin embargo, hay organizaciones a nivel locales, como las municipalidades, que son como pequeños gobiernos locales que hemos estado intentando tocar puertas con ellos, hemos logrado algún apoyo no financiero, pero sí de acompañamiento en los proyectos, de acompañamiento en la gestión, pero consideramos que una medida clave debería ser integrar estos apoyos realmente como una forma estructural de los gobiernos en los programas públicos. Si nosotros realmente contáramos con un programa público donde se incluya el el financiamiento asequible, el financiamiento que no va a afectar tu economía familiar, pero sí te va a apoyar. Entonces consideramos que el enfoque de vivienda digna y que estas cooperativas tendrían realmente un auge y podríamos lograr realmente replicar y llegar a más personas con este tipo de apoyo. Creo que es necesario que los gobiernos en todos los países puedan incluir esta iniciativa de dar fondos semilla, de dar capital semilla, financiamiento a todas estas organizaciones que trabajan desde abajo para dar una respuesta a una demanda real, en este caso, que es la vivienda de interés social. Nadia.
Muchas gracias, Ana. Perfecto.
Sí, por acá tenemos algunas imágenes que muestran como un poco el ciclo en Nicaragua, cómo funciona el tema de los mecanismos semillas, iniciando con una planificación donde las personas se integran, especialmente en el movimiento cooperativo, es un movimiento de mujeres. Luego se materializa con el trabajo colectivo y podemos visualizar ya la construcción de viviendas, fruto de este trabajo, fruto de esas iniciativas, y también en paralelo a ello la formación para tomar esa decisión colegiada que sea consciente, y la participación constante en la gobernanza de estos recursos. Creo que estoy con el tiempo.
Está
Muchas
perfecto,
gracias.
Ana. Muchísimas gracias. Next, I would like to invite Rubaya from POCA to present the fifth and sixth point. Rubaya, I will ask you to try to keep within the 5 minutes because we are running a little bit late on schedule. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. So I'll be highlighting two of the main essential pillars of this collective learning journey: research and development and experience exchanges. So across Asia, Africa, and beyond, communities have been practicing various forms of solidarity finance for decades. But one of the major finding is that this community-led managements are usually not recognized as much, and it's widely misunderstood by governments and financial institutions. Though it's not recognized, but the reality is communities are already managing their savings, loans, different kinds of saving, housing funds, and welfare systems, and their models are developed in a way which is maybe hard for the formal sector to translate into the formal language of indicators or risk metrics or those kind of tools that institutions require. So as a result, the value of this local systems are invisible to the formal sector. So through this collective journey, some recommendations are made. One of the firstly, the develop shared financial and social indicators that translate community wisdom into formats institutions can recognize without losing the core values. For example, through POCA, when we sit with community for housing loan finance model, the community members discussed among themselves and they proposed a model that will actually work for even for the poorest member of that saving group. So this model essentially becomes very inclusive and it's owned by the community, and as a result they are able to maintain it for long term. So such participatory way of financial modeling and co-creating new mechanism financial instruments that ensure communities sit with the financial experts at the same table and make this a kind of social values more visible to the formal sector. uh, and also not just the financial actors. uh, Pilot programs should be launched linking with academia, development actors, and community networks, so that it should not be only in theory. The theories and ideas should be tested, adopted, and should be seen how it can be contextualized and scaled up in different contexts. And lastly, building knowledge platforms and data hubs that will systematically collect, analyze, and share evidence of the impact of such financial models is very crucial. It's not just about the documentation, it's about legitimizing the community knowledge and making sure that decision makers, policy makers, finally see communities as equal partners in development finance. Next slide. So this is an example of a community designed action plan, which is developed through a co-creation workshop for 5 days among international, national, and local participants from Coral community in Dhaka, which was done very recently. So it's a diagram that shows how saving groups will connect and scale up collectively. Community members themselves mapped their journeys, their goals, their future targets. Overall, the board reflects a very powerful blend of community knowledge, the professional support from national and international experts, and collective vision for improving living conditions in that specific community. So this is a result of 5-day workshop. This such action plans, if could be scaled up with financial institutions, it would be more effective for communities. Thank you. Next. And so for experience exchanges, the peer-to-peer learning is actually very powerful. And we have experienced that through SEHR and our experience in through this network mostly. When community leaders visit other settlements, when with a group of, say, professionals, architects, or government employees, this cross-border learning from each other, it emerges new vision for all kind of actors. These exchanges create a trust between the communities, and that kind of trust, and that kind of, when they actually visit and learn this kind of horizontal sharing experience, that cannot be replicated or understood, shared through any other report or consultancy, uh, other than this experiencing those visits. So it's very essential for transferring knowledge and adapting this community finance models. And we have seen real life examples, like for example, earlier this year, a team of community leaders and architects researchers went to visit Nepal, where, because Nepal has been, as we've learned in the beginning, Nepal has been doing the saving group. They have a strong cooperative and saving group. So a small saving group which was formed in Dhaka, they visited Nepal, and they got to learn from those experiences. And those are not a very formal training. It's more of an informal outdoor sitting, and that's how the community leaders from Bangladesh learn from the community leaders of Nepal. And in such experience exchanges, especially if there are government officials, if they participate, it becomes catalyst for policy dialogues. It brings changes essentially, and usually the this kind of exchange visits are seen as extra activities instead of core components of transformation. So these are not chronicle, these are usually underfunded, or it's just an optional activity. But the recommendation through this collective journey is that this kind of exchanges should be formalized inside development strategies and with specific budgets. And sorry, integrating these exchanges into project design and evaluation, recognizing them as like capacity building tools rather than optional add-ons. Promoting cross-sector participation, bringing together communities, NGOs, universities, and public authorities is very crucial. And importantly, documenting and assessing these outcomes uh, is important so that we can learn and show how exchanges lead to innovation, institutional learning, and scaling up. Next slide. So I'll just, as I was sharing earlier about the Nepal exchange visit, on the left, you can see the women and the leaders of Nepal community is sharing their stories with the participants from Bangladesh who visited there. They are sharing, they're not just talking about their projects, they're sharing their stories, they're comparing saving practices and learning directly from each other's lived experiences. This kind of peer-to-peer dialogue helps communities understand practical solutions that have already worked elsewhere. So the other community just needs to contextualize in their context. And on the right hand side is the example is the image that shows a larger regional scale exchange during a co-creation workshop in Dhaka. So around 70 to 80 participants gathered together, and this photo reflects this diverse group of people, the collaboration and collective energy of this workshop. And behind them, there are community maps and action plans, maps and action plans and drawings that created during this session. So together, I'd just like to end saying that learning across borders and communities helps build trust and spark new ideas. Communities already have the knowledge, system, and imagination to drive community housing solutions. Maybe our role is just to recognize, strengthen, and amplify that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rubaya. I would like to invite now Lajana to do our last recommendation. And you have 5 minutes as well, Lajana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nina. I'll try to be short. I don't think I have much to say. I think it's very important to have this chapter in this study, right? So we have now heard about community-led finance mechanism and all the details with figures, like, the achievements made in all these 9 countries, in African countries, in Asian countries, in the communities, how women are making changes, in relation to the promotion of the savings cooperative mechanisms, and how that has actually led in improving the housing condition as well. But who is behind all these, this mechanism, this community-based financing mechanism, community-led financing mechanism? Who is behind that? So what we are now hearing is, what we have now listening is, what we know about is the key people who have made this process successful are the women. Right. When we say community-led financing mechanism, it seems that, automatically this has come out, and this, this saving group has formed, and the cooperatives is formed, and they are saving money, and they are, lending money, and, so because of that, like, houses improved, and things are improving in the communities. But just imagine, like, even before the formation of the saving group, even before, like, bringing few women together to form a saving group, to form cooperative is, like, again, the elaborated form of the saving groups, like how challenging, how difficult it is for women to come together to form a group. So from there, from zero, from without having a group, from living a scattered lives, like, in the communities, not having proper communication, not even knowing each other, even living in the same communities, like, happy with your own kind of like lives. From there, from zero to coming together, forming a group, saving a few rupee, few dollars, some money, small amount of money from their pockets, putting it together, forming a group, and slowly kind of working, getting together, learning by doing process, and then coming to form a proper kind of saving groups. One saving group, two saving group, tens, twenties, hundreds, right? More than hundreds, 10,000s, then becoming a cooperative, not only one, two, three number of cooperatives, right? So we have heard all these things, but the women who have really put such a hard work in all this process to make this process successful, we really need to recognize the contribution, the role of women played, to make this process successful. Because now this process is successful, this has led to the empowerment of all the women, of all the community women. This has contributed in making the change in changing the lives of the thousands and millions of the people, of the families, children, right? So it is really important that, who is behind all this process, the women, and the hard work that they have actually put in getting this organization, in getting these groups formed. Like, so it's very important that we really put the women in the central. When we say community-led financing mechanism, we also need to realize that how this has become successful, how this has come into existence, like so the invisible work, the hard work put by the women, they really deserve the appreciations, they really deserve recognition, and they really deserve the appreciation, they really deserve the recognition for the important contributions that actually they have done for the society, for the communities, for the cities, right, for the nation, to the and because there is although, like they have really done such a hard work, like their work has not been properly recognized and not integrated, so that is the issue. So they are working, they are forming a group, there are saving groups is very informal, like saving groups are generally informal and they are not registered. So cooperatives are registered and formal. So if they are a part of the cooperatives, there are cooperatives because it is already registered legal. So there is some kind of recognition is there. Some kind of formal partnership with the government and other stakeholders become possible once it get legalized or formalized. But there are also the number of saving groups, many saving groups, which they work as an informal. When they remain as informal, their contributions, their values not really recognized, and the partnership with the government and other stakeholders weaken there, right? So that should not be the case. Like, I think, like even the saving groups, they really deserve the attention of other support organizations to contribute them, to support them, to help them to grow and recognize the contribution that they are making in the lives of the women and also in the sector of housing as well. So because, like see, they are not getting enough adequate support from the other stakeholders, from other partners. I think there is the we are also missing we are also missing the opportunities. The important opportunities are missed. So when we say missing the opportunities, like we are not learning from them, we are not taking the learning from what the women have been going through, like right? So they are forced to work in isolation, and we are not integrating them in the mainstream process, not necessarily only by the governments, but also by the other stakeholders, also by the partners, the funding partners, the other the support organizations as well. So it is very, very important that we work together, we co-create the solutions together, we use all the opportunities available to work together and to find solutions together. So that is very, very important, and we have not been able to do this much, right? Their work is not really given values and recognition, and when this is not there, it's very difficult to have them in a policy formulating forums as well, right? The first recognition is very important. But then, because this is not happening automatically, right? It's not happening automatically. The support is required for them. The policy support, the policy has to be there to support the women-led saving groups, women's groups, women-led saving and credit cooperatives, right? Encouraging the women, inspiring the women, contributing them in their capacity development, and strengthening their institutions. It is very important. So it's we should not take granted that it's happening automatically. The saving groups, the formation of cooperatives, institutionalizations of these community-led financial institutions led by women is the result of the many, many years hard work put by the women. So, but then how do we scale up? Like, how do we scale up? How do we how do we also take these lessons from one community, from one city to another city, from one country to another country? So it just doesn't happen automatically. The process need to be funded. They need to be encouraged. Investment is required. That is not happening. So we have to ensure that, there is adequate fund available for the work of the women, the work that they do, the work that they do, the work that actually builds partnership with the governments, the work that actually gets, the women get an opportunity to contribute in the policy formulations, they to create the forums where the women can make their voices heard, speak, right? So the capacity need to be improved in various ways. Now it's a digital world. It's a world of the AI now, right? And the women, when we are talking about the women saving groups, cooperatives, like they also need to advance the techniques, the mechanism, how they work, because they also need to compete. They also need to make a progress, right? So that actually they can actually scale up their process and they can actually make a contribute effectively. So it is very, very, very important, because when we say community-led financing mechanism, they are making investment, they are supporting the women's group, they are investing in entrepreneurship development, they are contributing in housing, they are contributing in the development of the agriculture, they are actually also contributing in building resilience, right? Alex actually has been asking, like, how this fund, this women-led fund can be can also be used as a this climate finance as well, like, if they can also work on the climate finance. It is unfortunate that the climate finance has not reached to the communities, right? So it's unfortunate that. And the communities, the women, they are the ones who is suffering from the climate impact. The flooding is happening, earthquake is happening, natural disaster, fire is happening. There was such a big fire in Coral community in Dhaka just last week, just 8-10 days back. There was a very big earthquake in Myanmar. In Nepal, we had actually faced, this floodings happening in so many countries, like, the communities are facing the brunt of the climate impact. And these saving groups, in fact, from their own capacity, has contributed to lessen the sufferings of the people, providing them support, like in various ways, to address these natural disasters, the climate impact as well. So for all these reasons, it is very, very important that we develop their capacity, we build them, bring them to the mainstream development process, and provide adequate policy and funding support, and partner with these groups, so that they get inspiration from us, and they grow and they make a progress and
Thank you
contribute.
so much. Thank you,
So,
Lajana. I'm sorry to cut you.
sure,
I
okay,
think
stop.
you've done a very good summary of the recommendations that we've put forward. It's a very good place to finish this part. Thank you so much for sharing with us your extensive knowledge and experience. I hope we can continue this conversation afterwards as well. We should, right? As you mentioned, there are much left to be done. We do have many questions. I wasn't expecting this number of questions, and we have to finish soon. But before we jump into those, I would like to quickly invite Erika from Paxi in the Philippines. The idea we had with this study was not to have a publication where we would all put in our drawers. The idea was to extract knowledge and practice that can be useful for improving local efforts and for feeding into the work of our local partners. And I've been very happy to find out that those findings have been already used on the ground, and I would like to ask Erika to share with us in 1 minute what have you been doing in the past? How have you been using those in your local efforts in the past months? Thank you, Erika.
All right. Thank you, Nina. I think the process of the systematization process was very good because it was collective. All leaders from the Philippines and different parts of the Philippines came together, and it became a space for us to reflect as well on the very beginning of how we started the movement of the federation. Everything where we are now started with the savings, and we were able to see all of the gains that came from that. But at the same time, we also became very reflective of the challenges that we experienced over the years, from the process to the questions of sustainability and management, and also the future of our savings, especially now that the membership of the federation is bringing in a lot more of the youth members. How are our savings changing to adapt to and become more responsive to their needs? And that those reflections were coming in as we were doing the interviews and the discussions. So very much in parallel to the process of systematization, we started planning for how we can use this, the recommendations that are coming out from our reflections into improving our savings program. And what I'm showing you now, the photos are photos from our national savings workshop 2 months ago in September, where we brought together all of the key leaders from the federations and youth members and trying to design a new way of savings that, as Legend said, takes advantage of all of these developments in technology, but also keeps true to the spirit of this community-led finance of our communities and bringing in youth priorities. And you see the drawings of their vision of how this is going to support their future. So now we're in the last few stages where we're trying to write down all of the guidelines in a more formal way for our savings our federation to follow. And this is important not just for the internal federation, but also for our external work in advocating for community savings and having this supported and adopted by governments and other actors. There are, in our engagements with the governments, some of them have adopted their own community savings. And that was in the past where we had nothing written down. It was really just practices that we had. But now that we have this document to show the impact of our work and also the new guidelines that we are developing, we are hoping that we are able to convince more local governments and national government even to not just support, but really bring that into the formal process of financing for housing and other emerging needs of our communities. So that's where we are in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erika. That's really lovely to see. And I look forward to following up on that and yeah, supporting you on however we can on those efforts. Now we'll move on to the Q&A. Leah, if you'd like to jump in. We do have a lot of questions and we should finish in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Nina. Can we jump to the next slide? So I think Regis was in the chat collecting some questions. I'm not sure we will be able to answer all of them. So like Nina said, we have to finish in a few minutes. Maybe we will be still working with all the participants of the systematization in the coming months. So answers can be provided also after the webinar and shared with all the participants. Yeah, so there was one. Have you worked with any of the DFI? So I think development finance institutions, if I'm right. And what was your experience and any lessons learned? So maybe we can hear from some more experienced organizations. I don't know, Lumanti or Erika, if you have had any experience with such institutions and you want to share quickly some insights. Lumanti, maybe?
I don't think so. We worked with commercial banks, but I don't know. I don't think we've worked with development finance.
did any other organization have any experience with this kind of institutions? I don't think so. But that's something that we can discuss maybe also later and include in our reflections.
Perhaps, Nadia, you can exit the presentation mode. I try to put all the questions into the same slide so we have an overview of everything. You can share again. Yeah, I think it's easier. You can share again, Nadia. Should work. Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can see it now. Thank you so much.
So maybe one of the question that seemed also quite interesting, coming back to the key role of women, was asked by Michaela Boucher from the Geneva Federation of Cooperation, is yes, we do recognize and we see the role of the women in launching and managing these mechanisms, but how are we ensuring that they keep the leadership once these mechanisms are growing and scaling up? I don't know if Lumanti or maybe Ranjit, you want to share something about the experience of how financial mechanism is growing, becoming bigger, also on the national level, and what it implies to keep the women in the leadership role.
I think Ranjit can have like a better example with like so many members.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too. Ranjit, are you still here?
Yeah. That's the Women's Corp Sri Lanka, that they have grown up throughout last few decades, and it's we can name this as community finance or whatever the names that we have. We as supporters we can understand, but the community, this is just for their life and the way of solving their problems. So I think they are very much concerned about the once the external funding comes, they are very much careful, because most of the funding and other supporters, they cannot understand most of their activities and the process. So they are very much careful about getting support. Even, as an NGO, we are supporting them in a limited way. Once they require support, we give the support. So that's how they keep their, once you get more supports, that disturb their empowerment. So people face problems, then they start seeking solutions and become more and more empowered. So that's how they are, become empowered. Even as earlier, Lomanthi mentioned that the relationship with government, it always become problem for them because the community process always very dynamic and it's changing, but the government is always very backward and static. So there's a problem with the government. So because this is a process for community. They start with the group, then become a leader, then they empower themselves and continue the process. But the government, this is or the supporters. So we are thinking we know everything about community by working with them, by working for community for long years. We think we know many things about community, but we are not community. So we have to understand that and support, encourage them to take their own decisions. Then only they can become empowered. So the Women's Corp experience that they run their work from the beginning with minimal support from outside. They got some support from the beginning, but now they are, they are much empowered than any other outside organization. So yeah, that's how they become empowered. But we sometimes, I have seen working with this women's corps, most of the supporters, they are, now they think women's corps is, bit stubborn. They are not listening us like this, because as supporters, are we ready to accept the empowerment of the community? That's a question. So we have to, change our mindset also, because our role is supporting up to the empowerment. After that, we have to go to other community or other program. We have to do that. But if you think that they have to work according to our needs, our instructions, then that's not empowerment. That women's corp has passed that stage, and now they are really, really empowered women. So
Thank you. Thank you, Ranjit. And yes, Women's Cup is definitely a very inspiring experience in that sense, and in many others. Don't know, Nina, if we have time for one more question or if we have to wrap up.
Yeah, I think because we have the interpreters and we said that it wasn't too, but we can, as you said, follow up. I think the points mentioned by Alex are worth discussing, and that would give us the opportunity to organize another space of exchange where we can think about those answers together.
Absolutely.
And perhaps we'll wrap up. I'm already ahead of the schedule. If we can pass on the slides to the next one. Yeah, we have a lot of slides with questions, which is very good. I would just briefly like to mention that if you felt inspired by those initiatives and you would like to contribute to community-led finance right away, which we would really love, our partner in Nicaragua is organizing a fundraising to support the construction of 12 homes in Nostro Barrio cooperative, which is a mutual aid housing cooperative. And as we've explained, all those capital invested in those cooperatives, they are reimbursed to the local revolving fund, and this allows the support of even more families in the future. So if you want to support and contribute, every contribution helps those families to achieve the right of adequate housing. So go have a look. We also have just launched a documentary about the work of Multipro together with the mutual aid housing cooperatives in Nicaragua, with testimonials from beneficiaries, and it's very, very inspiring. So if you don't know this project, I encourage you to have a look. We'll share the link in our chat, and yeah, we will share also the link of the fundraising. And moving forward, just a last word on the next steps. We'll under the continuation of those exchanges in our last workshop with the partners. We were all very interested about what is happening in Senegal in the revolving fund for urban renewal, and it was almost a consensus around among the partners that they wish to visit this mechanism in person. So we're organizing a visit to Dakar next year with our partners, and we'll be sharing more information on this briefly in the next weeks. We still haven't decided on a date. We have an idea. So if you're interested in contributing on this and discussing, please reach out as well. And as part of, as I've said, on this continued dialogue and learning, Next year, we'll be organizing 3 regional webinars where we'll really deep into the context of Latin America, Africa, and Asia around community-led finance. So this will be organized together with each partner, and we'll also share more information with you in the beginning of the year. And I think that should be it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we look forward to continuing this conversation.